I'm so glad that I decided to start with this book because I am having the best time. I am really struggling with this book. It's gonna set me up for failure. Hey, how's it going? My name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be starting on a very exciting reading vlog where I'm going to be letting a random number generator determine how many hours I'm going to be reading every single day for a whole week. I have done a video like this once before. If you missed it, I did it in like May this year and it was very fun. It was a really good time, and so I wanted to bring back this style of video for the month of August. Because last time I did this video, it was just so much fun to challenge myself every single day to read for a certain amount of hours. This is my cute little spin the wheel that I will show you on my screen, and as you can see on this spin the wheel, there are a range of hours between 1 and 8 hours. I kind of like mixed them up so that they're all on different points of the wheel, and then I also listed the numbers 3 different times just so that the wheel would look more full and that it would be more suspenseful when the wheel spins. So let's go ahead and just do our first spin for today and see how many hours we're going to be reading for today. Oh my god, I'm scared. Oh fuck, oh my god. Okay, 7 hours. Wow, that's a long time. Okay, I better get started then. So you might be wondering if I have any books that I'm planning to read for this video, and I do have a stack of books set aside that are books that I would like to get to this week. I don't know how many books I'm going to be able to get to in the next week because I don't know how many hours I'm going to be reading every single day, but I'm hoping to get to some of these here. God, I don't even know what I want to start with today. Oh my god, I was not expecting to get something as high as 7 hours. I do have quite a bit of things that I need to get done today as well. Like, I do need to film the intro for a different reading vlog that I'm working on, and then I also do have a troop talk with my sister this afternoon for my Patreon. It's just like a live show that me and Rachel try to do once a month where we just like go live for about 2 hours and hang out with everybody and play some games. Oh shit, I don't even know if I have 7 hours set aside to read today. I mean, in the event that I don't hit the amount of hours that I'm supposed to hit today, the way that I did it last time was that any hours that I don't hit within that day will roll over into the next day. So say for today, if I don't hit the 7 hours, any remaining hours that I have left will add on to what I'm supposed to be reading tomorrow. So like, wow, starting off the week with 7 hours is gonna set me up for failure, but we're gonna keep doing it anyway. You know, I'm gonna try my best. Maybe I should just start with The Wedding People. I do have this one on audio, and I feel like this one could be a really good listen on audio. I think I'm gonna start making some breakfast while listening to this one on audio and get the day started. Let's do it. I would check in for the first update of this vlog because I have been reading for about 3 hours, and I wanted to update you that I have started on The Wedding People, and I'm now 212 pages in. I'm a little bit more than halfway already, and I'm so glad that I decided to start with this book because I am having the best time. I think this could already look like a 4 or maybe even 5-star read. Like, I am really connecting with the characters in this. So in this story, we're following this character named Phoebe Stone, and she's been having a really tough time recently because her and her husband have recently separated. She feels like she's at the lowest point of her life when she goes and checks into this inn, and she shows up at this place not expecting much, but then she finds out that there's a whole wedding happening at the Cornwall Inn for the weekend that she booked it, and she's kind of surprised because everybody's just assuming that she's a wedding guest, and then she has to awkwardly be like, oh, I'm actually not a wedding guest here, like I don't know anybody here. And it's kind of hard for me to talk about what happens in this book because there's something that happens within the first 15 pages of the book, but it's not mentioned in the synopsis, so like I don't want to spoil you, but let's just say that Phoebe had a reason why she was coming to this hotel specifically, and this book is just really interesting so far. Like, I don't even know how to describe this. I mean, as far as like genre goes, it is kind of like contemporary fiction, almost like literary fiction style of writing. Honestly, the way that this book is written to me, it really feels like Rainbow Rowell meets Frederick Bachman. Like that's like the kind of vibe that I'm getting from this writing. Because I think in my opinion, Phoebe's character, she reads so much like a Rainbow Rowell character. I don't know how to describe why that is, but in my opinion, she's a little bit like relatable. She's kind of like one of those characters who's like a big overthinker about everything. She has a lot of anxiety, and I feel like she's really thought about her life. Like she's always been such a good girl, such a rule follower, and this is the weekend where she's really just starting to become a little bit more unhinged and less polite and just like living her life for herself and like learning what it means to actually love yourself. So it kind of does feel like Rainbow Rowell's characters, but then it also does remind me of Frederick Bachman's writing style, because I do think that this book, you know, the subject matter is pretty dark and it's pretty heavy. Like there's a lot of talk in this book about suicide and like depression and all of these like dark thoughts. But for some reason, the book is written in a way that feels very like lighthearted in tone. And so I think like Frederick Bachman, because I feel like Frederick Bachman is the only other author I can think that does this very well, where like the book is about a very heavy, dark subject matter, but the tone of the book and the writing itself still feels very lighthearted and fun somehow. That's the kind of vibe that I'm getting from this book. It reminds me a lot actually of Anxious People, because you're having this character Phoebe who like is connecting with this woman who's the bride, and like they don't know each other, but they're starting to like open up to each other about like the traumas that they've been through and like different life experiences that they've had. I just think that this author is writing about a genuine human connection in such a realistic and like beautiful way. I've already been tabbing and like highlighting so many different parts in this book just because I think the writing itself is just so beautiful and so relatable, and there's been a few moments that have actually made me like laugh out loud because it's just genuinely so funny. There is also like a hint of a romance happening in this book at this moment in time, and I am also here for the romance. Like I'm really invested in whatever the heck is going on with this romance right now. And so I am very impressed. I am loving this one so much more than I thought I would. And I do feel like this is the perfect kind of like end of summer read, but it also is pretty dark. Like I'm not gonna lie to you, the humor in this book is very dark, and there is a lot of talk about like suicide and depression and some really dark things, but the book itself doesn't feel very dark. And so I'm having a great time with it so far. I'm probably gonna try to actually finish this book later tonight. I mean, I still have 4 hours of reading left to do for today. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to complete the 4 hours or not. I have the troop talk coming up with my sister in about 30 minutes from now, so I'm gonna continue reading until the troop talk. Hello, it is the next morning, it is day 2, and I have already failed because last night I read for a total of 6 hours. So it only took me around 5 hours to completely finish reading The Wedding People, and so I did finish this around the 5-hour mark. And then I only read for another hour after that, and I was gonna start on Night Shoot, but I literally only got 28 pages of reading done in that 1 hour because I could not focus. It's like my brain completely turned to mush after reading for those 5 hours, and I was starting to get a really bad headache. Oh my gosh, like I'm on my period right now, and sometimes I'll just get these headaches that are just so unbearable. And so unfortunately I wasn't able to hit the full 7 hours yesterday, but that just means I'll be adding an additional hour to whatever I end up having to read for today. But anyways, to update you on how last night went, I also painted my nails white because I thought it would be cute and it kind of like matches this book. I did finish The Wedding People, and I really had a fun time with this. I think I'm probably going to give this between like 4 or even 4.5 stars. I don't know why I hesitate to give this like the full 5 stars. I think my only reason why I'm not giving it that full rating is because I do think there were some parts of this book that felt a little bit like slow in the pacing, or like there were a few scenes that I was like, is this really like necessary? But other than those like tiny little nitpicks, like I really loved this. I really connected with the characters in a way that I was not expecting to. And you know, like I was talking about yesterday, I just think this author has a real talent for like taking subject matter that feels so serious and so dark, but still making the book feel very like fun and lighthearted. I think that takes a really talented writer to be able to pull that off. It's just one of those books that was easy to listen to on audio. It really held my attention all day, and I just really needed this, so I'm really glad to start off the vlog with such a great book. And then Night Shoot is a horror book from this author David Sodergren, and I recently have just read 3 of his other horror books. Like I am on a kick right now with this author. I got up to chapter 5 last night, and the only reason why I set this one aside is because I was not in the mood to only physically read after literally reading and listening to an audiobook all day. But I also think that, you know, this one is a horror book, and it involves this group of student filmmakers, and it's like a bunch of students making this like film together. And I just feel a little bit like right now I just feel a little bit burnt out on like the horror movie trope, I guess, at the moment, because I've been reading so many books in a row recently that have this trope of like the horror movie trope. So I think I might just set this one aside for now. I'm just like not really in the mood to read this right now. But I think for today I might actually start on Not So Perfect Strangers. Just got this book recently from Half Price Books. I just hauled it pretty recently here, so I've been really excited to read it. I just got the audiobook checked out from my library, so I think this one might be my next read for today. So I thought we would go ahead and spin the wheel for today and see how long the universe is deciding for me to read today. I will also be adding on an hour to whatever number I spin today because of the way that I did not hit 7 hours yesterday. So, alright, so let's go ahead and spin. Just imagine it gives me 2 numbers back to back so high. Okay, 3. I can do 3. I can do that today because that means it'll be 4 hours. So that should be enough time for me to start and finish this book today. I'm assuming I'm going to head to the park to do some reading outdoors today because that just sounds amazing. It's about like 76 degrees today, so it's like not too hot but not too cold, and it's the perfect day to get out, I think. So I think I'm gonna do that. Thank you so much. Thanks, you too. A good time to update you because I have been reading for an hour and 40 minutes and I'm almost halfway through the audiobook at this point. I'm on page 148. While I've just been sitting out here, you know, I got my coffee from Woods earlier. I've just been eating out here, chilling. I've basically had the whole park to myself out here today, which like never really happens. So that's been really nice. I even got to go on the swing set and like, oh my god, I felt like a kid again. I haven't gone on the swings like that in so long. But anyways, this thriller has been very interesting so far. I feel like at one point I must have known what this was about and that's why I wanted to buy it, but I have since forgotten what this book was about. So it was really cool to actually like read this book without knowing anything about the premise, really. And so something that I'm liking about this book so far is that this is this author's spin on Strangers on a Train, which, you know, Strangers on a Train, I haven't actually read the book Strangers on a Train yet myself, but any book that's inspired by Strangers on a Train always ends up being some of my favorite books. Like just for example, The The Kind Worth Killing and Kill for Me, Kill for You are two books that are inspired by strangers on a train. It's like the idea when two strangers meet each other and then they decide to commit murder for each other. That's kind of like the trope with that I love it. I think it's so interesting. But this one has a really unique spin on it because we're following these two characters. We follow this one woman named Tasha, who's black, and then we follow this other woman named Maddie, who's this white woman. And they are both in some very intense, abusive relationships with their husbands. And so one day they just happen to meet each other in a situation where like Maddie is like storming out of her house and her husband is like chasing her, and she just gets into the car of this woman, Tasha, and Tasha decides to help her because, you know, she's also a victim of domestic violence, and so she decides that she wants to help this woman. And then this girl, Maddie, has the idea of, she's like, well, we should just kill our husbands for each other. Like, we should kill the other husband for each other. You know, Tasha has a lot more concerns about this, obviously, because she's a black woman and she doesn't think that she would be able to get away with murder in the same ways that Maddie might be able to. So there is a lot of really good social commentary in this book so far when it comes to things like that. I also think the writing itself, it's pretty like simplistic writing. Like, it's pretty easy to get into. It almost reads like Frida McFadden or like Kristen Maudlin or something, where it's like, it's easy to get into, it's easy to read. And so far there have been a few little like shocking moments here and there that I was like, oh shit. This character, Maddie, is definitely a character that's like, I don't know if I can trust her perspective kind of person, you know, which I do think makes the story very interesting. I am really connecting with Tasha as a character, and I feel like this book is a little bit more heavy than I was anticipating, not only because of the obvious things like domestic violence. Like, there are so many on-page scenes where we're reading about domestic violence and just like verbal abuse in general. Like, the husband is just really fucking awful. But then also, like, we do get a lot of flashback chapters as well that are also really tough to read, that involve like grooming and like molestation and all of these different things that are like, oof. It's like the subject matter is just very, very dark with this one. But all that being said, I am still really enjoying it. I've hit a point in the book now where things are really starting to get interesting because the action of the story has kind of started to pick up. So I am really curious to see where the rest of this goes. I should have no problem finishing up the rest of this today. I think my plan for this afternoon is just to sit out here for a little bit longer. Like, I'll probably be out here for maybe another hour, and then I might need to run to the grocery store to pick up like one or two things that I need, and I have a library book that I need to drop off, and just a few little errands here and there. But I'm probably just going to continue listening to this on audio because it's such an easy book to listen to. Hello, I am back with an update because I just finished reading Not So Perfect Strangers at 3 hours and 50 minutes. So I think we can call that 4 hours, right? Also, I just finished making some avocado toast when I got home. That's like part of the reason why I wanted to go to the store and just pick up a few things, because I've really been loving recently. My friend Brittany got me onto this, making avocado toast with this burrata cheese. So freaking good. You just make the avocado toast on sourdough bread, then you put burrata cheese, you also put everything bagel seasoning, you put basil, you put thyme, and then you also put balsamic glaze drizzled on top. Dude, it's like the best thing ever right now. It's like my favorite afternoon snack. And I also just made myself a cup of tea because lately I've been becoming more and more of a tea person. I've actually just really been drinking a lot of herbal tea lately because it actually really helps with my GERD. And because I had coffee earlier today for the first time in a while, I was like, you know, I should probably drink some tea. Let's talk about Not So Perfect Strangers. I really enjoyed this one. I think I'm probably gonna end up giving this about like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The only reason why I would not knock it down a little bit lower is because I feel like the ending of this book, like there were some things that I thought were surprising, but there was nothing like super shocking about the ending of this book. I feel like the story went in a direction that I was kind of anticipating that it would go in that direction, but then something that I thought was a little bit strange about the ending of this book is how most of this story, we are just switching between the point of view of Tasha and then Maddie for like the entire book. But then in some of those last chapters, we actually got the point of view of like the detectives that were like on the scene and like the detectives that were working on this particular case. And I personally didn't love the chapters that were kind of told from the detective's point of view. Like I just didn't care, I guess, as much. But I really did connect a lot with Tasha, especially as a character. And I feel like Maddie was a very frustrating character at times, but at the same time, she was very interesting to follow. I do think that this is one of those thrillers that does pack quite a bit of social commentary, just when it comes to how different your life can look living in America when you're Black versus when you're white, and the different kind of privileges that come with being white, especially when it comes to, you know, the police suspecting you of any kind of crime. So I do think there was some good social commentary regarding those things. But yeah, overall, I think this is about 3.5 star. I'm excited though because I've never read anything from this author before, and this has me excited to like check out more books from her in the future. So it was a good time, and I'm glad that I finally read it because I've had my eye on this one for quite some time. So anyways, the rest of my afternoon, I'm probably just gonna be editing on my laptop. I have to get this entire reading vlog edited tonight and sent for approval to a sponsor tomorrow. So like I need to get this done. Hello, good morning. It is the next day and the next morning, and it is time to spin the wheel again. So let's do it. See how many hours I'm gonna have to read today. Okay, perfect. I got the hour, 4 hours. I can definitely do 4 hours today. That sounds great. I think today is going to be the day that I read I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones, and I'm so excited to finally get to this one because this book is actually my BookTube book club pick for the month of August, and I'm also going to be joining Kayla with like the Literally Dead book club. We're like joining our book clubs this month to read this book together. I also do have some reading sprints today scheduled on Patreon. They're set to start in about an hour. So let's jump into this one and get the day started. Hello, I wanted to update you because I've been reading for almost 2 hours at this point, and I'm exactly 50% of the way through I Was a Teenage Slasher. I'm on page 184. This book is not going very well for me. I'm not gonna lie, it's not going very well for me. I am really struggling with this book just in terms of like the writing style. I'm finding it very hard for me to get into this story. I do feel like this book is reminding me a lot of like My Heart is a Chainsaw, which is another book from Stephen Graham Jones. That's actually one that I DNF'd personally. I just did not like My Heart is a Chainsaw, but the reason why I wanted this one to be a book club pick and why I was still excited for it is because there have been a few books from Stephen Graham Jones that I've really enjoyed. Like Night of the Mannequins and Mapping the Interior are definitely two of my favorite books from him, and this is actually my 5th book that I've read from Stephen Graham Jones. And so I had some high hopes that this could be my thing, but I'm really feeling like it's not, and I'm really finding this story like hard for me to get into. I'm like finding it hard to understand like what is actually happening and what's not real. And I don't know if that's intentional with the writing or not, if it's written in a way that's intended to be a little bit confusing at times or hard to follow. But in this story, we're basically following this character named Tolly Driver, and most of this is taking place in Texas in 1989, but the story is being told 17 years after the events that happened in 1989, so he's writing it in a way where he's like reflecting on what happened in the summer of 1989. And so we're mainly following this character named Tolly and then his best friend Amber. Something that's difficult about this book for me too is the fact that there are no real chapter breaks. I mean, we do get a point where it like splits off into a separate part of the book, I guess, where you could consider that a chapter break, but then I guess the first part of this book is the first like 61 pages, and then you get to the next day, Saturday, and so it's only really divided by like the different days of the events that he's talking about. The writing style is also kind of like a choice in and of itself because he's typing the story on a typewriter, so supposedly. So like anytime that a word is underlined, it's supposed to be italicized, but he's like, this typewriter doesn't have the ability to italicize words, so he underlines the words that are supposed to be italicized. There was some truly gruesome and awful shit that this book is describing that happened to him and his friends in 1989. And those scenes were like really difficult to read because they were really gory and really violent, but I was also confused. Like while I was reading them, I kept feeling like, is this scene what really happened? Or is this like his imagination? I kept getting very confused, and because of that, I feel like it's been very hard for me to follow along in this story about like what's actually happening. There have also been, I don't know if this is just a me thing, because I'm the kind of person that gets very disgusted by the idea of vomiting. Like, dude, vomiting, I'm definitely one of those people that like, if I see or smell or see anybody else vomit, like it makes me want to vomit. It's disgusting. I don't like even thinking about it. And there have been so many descriptive, disgusting, gross scenes of describing vomiting in like a very grotesque way. I swear there have been at least 3 different times that they've talked about him vomiting in the most like grossly written way that is very descriptive, and I'm just like, oh my god, like can we not? So that's been a little bit like bothersome for me. You know what's interesting though, because I see a lot of people saying that, oh, this is more of like a character study as opposed to like a book that's about plot, because plot wise I feel like there's not a lot really going on in this book, but I personally don't really feel as attached to the characters as I was expecting to for a book that is all about the characters. I'm not really connecting with either Tolly or Amber very much. There's been so much commentary throughout this book about what makes a good slasher and how like all slashers have a good sequel, and all this commentary just about the slasher genre in general, which also maybe that should have been a big sign to me that I wouldn't enjoy this, because I feel like I talk about this a lot where like in the horror genre, as far as books go, I don't usually tend to enjoy slashers, which I've learned about myself in these last couple of years. I mean, I do love a good slasher movie, don't get me wrong. I love slashers in movies, but for some reason in books, I always find them to be a little bit underwhelming for some reason. So I'm not having the best time with this, and it makes me really sad to say that. Honestly, if I wasn't reading this for my book club, I would probably DNF at this point, I'm not gonna lie. But because it's a book club pick, I'm gonna power through and finish this today. Okay, hello, just checking in because it has been just a little bit over 4 hours and I just finished listening to I Was a Teenage Slasher. I ended up going to the gym right after I did reading sprints, which was really great because I was listening to this on audio while I was at the gym and I was there for a little bit. And then when I got home, I took a quick shower, I made some dinner, and then I just finished listening to this on audio. And I do have mixed feelings about the ending of this book because I actually really liked the ending of this. I really loved the ending. I feel like it's very obvious to me that Stephen Graham Jones had a vision for this book, you know, and that he really had an intention with this ending. I also really did end up loving the friendship in this book between Tolly and Amber throughout the story. Like, I love that their friendship is platonic, but that they are so supportive of each other and they just felt like genuine, real friends. But I do have to be honest, I just don't think that this was the kind of book for me. I think I can see why this book could work for other people, but for me personally, it's just not a very memorable read. I probably would have DNF'd this, you know, as I was saying, if I wasn't reading this for my book club, and I was really struggling throughout most of this book, even though the ending was worth it, I guess, in the end. I still don't see myself rating this very high. I do think that this book has a lot of commentary on the slasher genre as a whole, and so if you're a really big slasher fan, I think you could love this. If you loved My Heart is a Chainsaw, I think you could love this. If you're a really big fan of like Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay and The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay, I can see you really liking this because I feel like it has a very similar writing style where it comes off a little bit pretentious at times and it's very like stream of consciousness, and sometimes I feel like that writing works for me and then sometimes it really doesn't. And in this book, I found some of it to be so frustrating and so repetitive, especially in the second half of this book. Like, dear God, the amount of times that this character is like saying like, well, slasher this and slasher that. I wrote down some of the quotes because it was getting so goddamn repetitive when he would say, slashers, we don't play fair. Slashers are good with that. Slasher logic. The slasher in me would have chosen dark. Like, the amount of times that he refers to himself as slasher is just really incredibly annoying. Like, it got old so fast. And that alone just really made this book feel so pretentious at times, to the point where it was like eye roll worthy. That's why I'm so torn on how I feel about this, because at times I really did like how meta this book felt at times with like the slasher commentary, but then at times it was just so like on the nose and kind of like in your face about it, and it was really annoying with the repetition. I also feel like even though I did end up loving the friendship that existed between these two characters, I still really feel like I never really connected with the characters in any real meaningful way. It is interesting to read the author's note at the end of this book and to know that this book was a really personal experience for Stephen Graham Jones, or that this book is one of his more personal ones. It does say in the premise of this book that this is Stephen Graham Jones x-raying the slasher genre. It says this is from a town he did some growing up in a year he was also 17. So he definitely has some connection to this character because he was the same age growing up in the same town. I do like the direction, I guess, that the book ended up going in, but I honestly only really loved like those last 30 pages or so. But I think overall, I'm probably gonna give this 2 stars, maybe 2.5 stars. I don't know. I mean, I will have a book club discussion for this book live on my channel very soon. I'll probably have the link in the description if you want to save it. I do have so many thoughts on this, and I'm really curious to see how everybody else ends up feeling about it. But anyways, I will see you tomorrow when we spin the wheel once again. Dude, today I just woke up and it's like very cloudy and it looks almost like it's gonna rain outside. I am here for the weather today, and you know what? Last night, Post Malone's new country album, F1 Trillion or whatever it's called, it dropped last night. And I'm not the biggest like country music fan, okay? Like, I would not call myself a country music fan. I mean, I used to like country music a lot more when I was in high school, to be honest. But dude, this album is so good, and I'm so glad because I'm such a big Post Malone fan. Like, his voice in general is just so freaking good, and it really suits country music so well. So I'm really obsessed with the song Wrong Ones, the first track on the album that's featuring Tim McGraw. Oh my god, it's so good. But anyways, let's get down to business because we do have a number to spin for today. Let's spin it and see what we're gonna get. Oh my god, I thought we were gonna hit the 7. Okay, 5 hours. That's doable. I can do 5 hours. I do have some plans this afternoon because me and my sister are planning on going to our local town fair. And really, we just love going to this town fair just because the food is always really good. They always have a lot of really great dessert menu items there. Also, just because I think it's so much fun to go to the fair like once a year. I mean, I hope the weather holds up today, honestly. I hope it doesn't rain. But that's the plan for later tonight. We're probably not going to go until like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon though, and it's only 10 a.m. right now. So I think the plan is that I'm going to go downstairs, make some breakfast, and then I'm gonna get started on reading. As far as reading goes, I don't know exactly what I'm gonna be in the mood for, but I think I am gonna try to start The Pairing because this is one of my most highly anticipated romance books.
So rough around the edges. I guess that some things never change. Yeah, I know that it's been ages, but it kinda feels the same. No matter how hard you try,
Hello, it has been a couple of hours and I do not have good updates for you. I've been reading for a total of 3 hours so far. For about an hour and a half, I was reading The Pairing and I only got 63 pages into this one because I kept getting so distracted. Like, I could not focus on this book for the life of me. I am gonna DNF this one. I don't know if I just said that or not. But like, I should have known that this book was not gonna be for me, not only because this author has been very hit or miss for me in the past. Like, I've only loved Red, White, and Royal Blue from them. Everything else that I've read from them has either been a DNF or I've rated it like pretty low. And this one, I should have read the premise before I jumped into this because I didn't really know anything about this. So I didn't know that this was gonna be like a second chance romance kind of situation between these two characters who were friends and they were lovers and now they're exes. And you know, I'm not the biggest fan of second chance romance. It's one of my least favorite romance tropes, and unfortunately, this one is no different. But then I also feel like both of these characters, oh my god, just in the beginning of this already, they're acting so childish and so immature. So we don't know exactly like why they broke up or what exactly happened between them, but we do know that they were on this trip to Europe together, and while they were on the plane on the way to Europe, they had this huge breakup, fight, meltdown. And now it's been like 4 years later, and they both happen to be using their flight credits at the same time to make this trip happen again, and they just happen to book the same tour, which is a little like far-fetched far-fetched. Like, I'm sorry, it's been 4 years. I find it hard to believe that they would book the exact same trip 4 years later, but that's besides the point. What I didn't realize about this premise, I just read it at the bottom and it's included in the premise of this. And if I had read this, I probably never would have picked up this book anyways. But it says, when Theo suggests a friendly wager to see who can sleep with their hot Italian tour guide first, Kit is game. In fact, why stop there? Why not a full-on European hookup competition? They're placing bets on who can sleep with their tour guide first. I don't know, something about that feels a little bit icky to me. And then also like making it a competition, like who can sleep with more people in Europe? I'm sorry, I don't care. I literally do not care. I don't want to read that. And just in those first 60 pages, both of the characters are already acting so freaking immature and annoying. So like, I just know that this is not going to be the book for me. I also see so many friends on Goodreads are like rating this one super low. So like, I'm not gonna hold my breath. I don't have any hope. But anyways, for the last hour and a half, I've been listening to What Have You Done by Sherry Lapina on audio. And at the speed that I'm listening to, I was able to get about 50% of the way through this audio already. And unfortunately, I'm also kind of feeling a disconnect with this one. I don't know if I'm like starting to get into a reading slump kind of mood, but that's kind of how I'm feeling because I feel a strong urge, like I want to DNF this one too because I just don't care enough about what's happening. I feel like Sherry Lapina is a thriller author that I really used to love and I've read almost every single one of her books, but I feel like her books are starting to follow like the same formula and it's just getting kind of boring. In this thriller, we're following all these characters who live in this small town in Vermont. And then of course there's this young girl that dies. They find her body naked in a field. Of course, right away, her boyfriend, who is also a teenager, is a suspect because of some questionable shit that he's said to the police. And then they're also questioning her gym teacher, who she may or may not have had like romantic feelings for. I don't really know the situation there. And then Sherry Lapina is also doing this like weird point of view in this book where we're almost getting the perspective from the girl who died after she's died. And it's kind of weird. Like, I don't know, I'm not really clicking with that choice. I feel like in my opinion, this book is just reading like such a typical thriller that I'm just kind of bored. Like, I feel like it's something that I've read before. It's really bringing nothing new to the table and I just don't care enough about any of the characters or the story to really care about what ends up happening anyway. So unfortunately, I feel like this one's gonna be another DNF from me. Wow, 2 of them back to back. So I'm probably gonna go to the fair, have a great time, and then maybe when I come home later tonight, I can start something new. Maybe I'll just read manga for the next 2 hours. Maybe I will start on a new book. I don't really know yet. Good morning. So last night read for my total of 5 hours after getting home from the fair. Dude, the fair was so much fun. It was mostly just, you know, us eating a ton of food, like so much good food. And then I also got a henna, which is so cute. I don't know if you can see it, but it's the little turtle. I tried to take a video clip of it last night before all of the stuff came off, but it's looking very orange right now. But you know how hennas are, after a few days this is going to get so much more dark, and then it'll hopefully last about 2 to 3 weeks. But I'm so happy with this. I think it's so adorable. But anyway, after I got home last night, I did read the manga that's Until I Meet My Husband, and this one is a non-fiction manga, which I didn't know if I realized that at the time that I got this from the library the other day. This one's actually a non-fiction. It says it's a memoir of a gay activist and the first religiously recognized same-sex marriage in Japan. Very cool and interesting to read this, but I also think, holy shit, like this was not a light Saturday night read. You know, like this was very heavy and very sad. There was like a lot of religious kind of stuff in here and talking about like the shame of being gay and how it's just so shameful and how he's always been made to feel like an outsider in his life. And so this was some very, very heavy shit. I was like, whoa. I was not really expecting this to be as heavy as it was, so it was really sad and kind of depressing to read this, to be honest. It took me around like 45 minutes to read this one. I don't know if I'm gonna rate this, to be honest, because it is a memoir and a nonfiction. Right after I finished reading that, I decided to pick up Bye Baby by Carola Lovering. This is another book that I just checked out from my library the other day, and I thought, why not? I was able to get my hands on the audiobook from the library as well. Carola Lovering is an author that I've had one success with, and then I've had one book that I've really hated. She's really popular and well known for that book called Tell Me Lies, which I personally gave 1 star when I read it years ago. I hated it. Like, I really, really disliked it. But then she also came out with that book called Too Good to Be True, and that's the only other book that I've read from her, and I actually really liked Too Good to Be True. So I thought maybe I'd get around to this one eventually, and when I saw it at the library, I was like, okay, why not? This one is kind of like a mystery thriller, I think. So far, it's reading a little bit more like drama between friends kind of vibe, but we're following these two characters who are both living in New York City. So we have this girl named Billy, who's like our main protagonist, and then we have this girl named Cassie, who's like her best friend. And Cassie is like a social media influencer. She has her own business called Cassidy Adler, where it's like a boutique in New York, and she's recently become a mother. Billy seems like she's a little bit like envious of her life or something. Like there's some tension between them for sure. I think Billy just feels jealous because ever since Cassidy has had a baby, she feels like Cassie doesn't have as much time for her. But Billy is still single, you know, and she's one of those people who loves to like travel the world, and she doesn't really want children. But of course, Cassie and all of her friends are like convinced that Billy's just like sad and alone, and like, what do you mean? Because everybody wants children. Like, she's just saying that as an excuse, which is like obviously so annoying because no, not everyone wants children. I know I certainly don't. And so reading about Cassie and her friends is like really obnoxious, and I know that it's like intentionally obnoxious. But what was interesting in this book is that in the prologue, like in the very first chapter you read from this book, you read about how Billy has taken Cassie's baby girl daughter. Like, she stole her. And so you kind of know that from the very first prologue that Billy is going to eventually take Cassie's daughter. And then you jump into part 1 of the book and it sends you back to 50 days before. So like, you know that some shit is about to go down between these two women and that she's about to take her daughter. And then this book is also doing a thing where like in between the chapters, it'll flash back to the year 2000 when these girls were like 12 years old and they had first met. And so Billy and Cassie actually met all the way back then. And so we kind of get their story of like how they became friends in the first place. I feel like I do have a prediction for what's going to be happening in those flashback chapters, and I hope that I'm wrong because I feel like it's really freaking obvious. But I am enjoying this so far. I'm liking the writing. It's like really easy to get into, and I also do like the friendship between Billy and Cassie. Like, I don't know, I find it very interesting. I usually do like, you know, books like this that revolve around slightly toxic female friendships. I just find it to be very fascinating to read. So I am having a good time with this so far, and I can see myself trying to finish up this one today. I pulled up the trusty spin the wheel here so we could see how long I'll be reading for today. So let's do it. Oh. Okay, 1 hour of required reading today. That is so easy. I literally thought it was about to go up to the 8. Okay, well, that's perfect. So I only have 1 hour of required reading today. I mean, I might just go ahead and finish this book today. I don't know, we'll have to see. It's actually perfect that I got this today, though, because today, later on tonight, I'm gonna be going to see the movie It Ends With Us in theaters with my mom. I'm actually working on a Patreon video this month where I reread the book It Ends With Us, and then I'm going to see the movie in theaters, and I'm gonna be doing like a comparison and how I feel about both kind of video. So if you'd like to see that video over on my Patreon, I'll have it linked down below. And maybe today I will just make it my goal to try and finish up this book. If it takes me a little bit over an hour to do, that's fine. Okay, hello, we are here to go and see the movie. We just pulled up. Have you heard about all the like drama with this cast recently? No. There's like been so many rumors. If you Google it, you can see all of the things, but like there's been so much drama with this cast recently. Hello, good morning. It is the next day. So I have a few updates for you. Yesterday, I did end up going to my local library to read for a couple of hours. Yesterday, I actually ended up reading for a total of 2 hours and 37 minutes, but I did finish Bye Baby, and I've got to say that I really enjoyed this. I think I'm gonna give this one 4 stars. I hesitate to want to recommend this book though, because I don't think the mystery thriller elements of this book were very strong necessarily, but I do think that the characters were very interesting and just very well written in my opinion. I personally really connected with Billy's character and the way that she talks about how she doesn't want kids, and that's kind of like a running theme throughout the book, is that she's like never really felt understood because she doesn't want kids, and like how her relationship with Cassie started to fall apart in a way after Cassie had her kid, because it's like then they can no longer relate to each other in a way. I just thought the friendship in this book was so well written. I also do think though, like as far as thriller stuff goes, I do think this was like pretty predictable and like pretty obvious at times, like where the story was going. Like I don't think there was ever a moment where I was like, oh shit, like I didn't see that coming. Like there was no like plot twist or anything, at least in my opinion, because I thought everything was pretty obvious. But I'm still giving it 4 stars just because I really do like the way that this book was written. I connected with the characters and I had a good time reading it. For me, it was one of those thrillers where like I couldn't pull my eyes away from the page while I was reading it, and I feel like that's a really good sign to me. But I don't know if I would recommend this widely, because I feel like a lot of people could read this and be like, well, nothing really happened, and like this is such a boring mystery thriller book. And like, yeah, you're probably right, but I personally really had a good time with it. And then last night, me and my mom, we did end up going to see It Ends With Us in theaters, and I have so many thoughts about that. Last night it was crazy because we ended up having a crazy thunderstorm. Like I can't even tell you the last time we had crazy lightning and thunder here, but that was probably the loudest thunder I've ever heard in this apartment, like living here. It was so wild. I actually pulled up the WeatherBug app and it showed that the closest lightning strike was only 2 miles away from our apartment. Like, oh my god! I was kind of freaking out. It was crazy. It was actually really windy too. It was weird. Like the storm just came out of nowhere. It was actually so hot outside yesterday. It was almost 90 degrees outside yesterday and it was really sunny. And then last night the storm just rolled in out of nowhere. And now today it's all like cloudy and overcast. Like super weird weather we're having out here lately. But anyways, it is time for us to spin the wheel once again. All right, let's do it. Oh. Weird. Okay. Only 2 hours today. You know, I feel like the beginning of this vlog, it was giving me the higher amounts of hours and making things difficult for me. And now it seems like in these last 2 days, they're like, you deserve a break. Well, that's cool. So I only have 2 hours of required reading today. I do have some Patreon reading sprints scheduled for this afternoon at 2 o'clock. And so maybe I just like won't start reading until the Patreon reading sprints. I am really excited though, because I just got a bunch of books checked out from my library recently while I was there yesterday. I picked up a bunch of my holds. I also did check out a few books. They had Milk Fed and This Time Tomorrow, which are 2 books that I've been very, very interested in reading. So maybe I'll read one of these on audio tonight. Like, I don't really know what I'm in the mood for.
But can we stay here for a while until everything's alright again? That's cool with you, cool with you, cool with you. 'Cause that's cool with me, cool with me, cool with me. Is that cool with you, cool with you, cool with you? 'Cause that's cool with me, cool with me, cool with me.
Alright, hello, I'm back with an update because I have read for 2 hours today. So I actually had my Patreon vote on which book I should start with today. I had either This Time Tomorrow or Milk Fed, and they ended up voting on This Time Tomorrow. And so for nearly like the first full hour of reading, I was reading this one and I got all the way up to part 2, which puts me at about like 75 pages in. And I decided that I want to DNF this one for now because I don't know if it's like I'm just not in the mood for this, or if it's like I just don't think that this is the book for me. The thing that intrigued me so much about this book is that it's kind of like a time travel story where we're following this woman who is turning 40 years old and she's kind of like thinking about her life and how different it is now. And then the next day when she wakes up, she's 16 again. And it's kind of like a story about her and her father and their relationship. And because now like, when she's in her 40s, her father's like dying. And so it's kind of like a father-daughter story. But I don't know, there's just something about the writing style that I'm just not really clicking with. It just feels very wordy and like the pacing is just really slow. Like only now at 70 pages in are we even getting to the time travel stuff. And it's just been so sad and depressing. And I'm just just like not really feeling this book right now, so I decided to DNF it. I also did try to start Milk Fed today. I only read like the first couple of chapters, and I just realized I don't think I'm in the mood for something like this either. I mean, this is one of those like weird literary fiction books, and that's why I wanted to pick it up, but oh my god, if I have to hear about this character and her counting calories about like every little thing, it just got very annoying to me very quickly. And so I decided maybe now is not the right time to read something like this either. So I decided instead that I wanted to read something like thriller or horror. And I remembered that the publisher actually just sent me the audiobook for The Night Guest. And this book technically doesn't publish until September, but I was able to get my hands on the audiobook early. So I just decided to listen to this one instead. And I was able to finish listening to this audiobook within that 2-hour period. Because dude, this audiobook is only like 3 hours long. And at the speed that I was listening to it, I basically finished it in like an hour 10 minutes. And this book was so interesting. This one's a horror novella that's coming out very soon. It's translated. The premise for this one is so genuinely creepy because you're following this woman, you know, this protagonist, and she is having some issues with her sleep. And she notices that every night she's walking over like 40,000 steps in her sleep and she doesn't remember anything about it. So she's having these like weird occurrences, like weird things are happening while she's sleeping and she's having trouble with her memory. And so she keeps going to the doctor and trying to figure out what's going on with her. And dude, this book was so genuinely creepy. What I really liked about this is that this book, the pacing, dude, it has short chapters, okay? We're talking, this book has 100 chapters in it, and it's about 200 pages long from what I saw on Goodreads, but honestly, it probably reads so much quicker because there are so many chapters that are just like one sentence. So the pacing is so great. Like, this is a book you could easily finish within one sitting. There was like one scene in particular that was so genuinely creepy that I was like, dude, if I was listening to this like in the dark, I think I would have been like hella creeped out. Like, I feel like this is a good one. If you want a book that's gonna scare you, like listening or reading this in the dark, I feel like this could be it. Because like the idea of like weird things happening to you while you're sleeping at night, like that is so scary to me. Like that's one of the things that gives me the most like in horror books. I also thought that this book had really great commentary on like women receiving poor healthcare, or like women who aren't believed by their doctors about like what's going on with them, or just having the experience of a doctor who like won't listen to you and aren't taking your problems seriously. I do think that this book had some good commentary on that as well. I did end up giving this one 4 stars. The only reason why I didn't rate it higher is because the ending of this book was just okay. It didn't really do anything for me personally, but I do think that this was a pretty great horror novella that I can see a lot of people really loving this because it is genuinely so creepy. It's so fast paced. The Night Guest was fantastic. I would highly recommend checking this one out when it comes out in September. Hello, good morning. It is the final day of this challenge. I've got my spin the wheel, so let's spin it for the final time and see how many hours I'm going to be reading for today. Oh my god, I thought it was going to end by giving me 8 hours, and I was like, there's no way. I mean, that would have been quite the way to go out, to be honest, but I got 3 hours, which is very cool. I don't know what I'm going to be reading today. I honestly have no idea. Anyways, I'm going to read for 3 hours, and then I'll let you know what I've been up to.
My head's in the clouds, can you bring me back down, boy? I need it. I need it. I need it.
Who? Hello, how's it going? It is the end of the night, so I wanted to update you because I have completed my 3 hours of reading that I had to do today. It was so much fun earlier tonight. Me, Rachel, and Obed, we ended up going to the movie theaters to see Deadpool and Wolverine, and it was so fun because I've been wanting to see this movie, you know, for about a month now, like ever since it came out, and it was so good, dude. For me, it was like 10 out of 10, like one of my favorite movies that I've seen this year. I just think Ryan Reynolds is so freaking hilarious. Like, how is he so effortlessly funny? Like, he's just so good at writing his own comedy, and the movie's just so, like, darkly funny. I love the way that he, like, breaks the fourth wall and, like, talks to the audience, and he just says the most outlandish things that I'm like, how does Marvel and Disney let him get away with this? It's just so funny. It was so entertaining, and it was such a great night. And we also went to Chipotle on the way home, and that was really great because I haven't had Chipotle in a while, so that was fun. But earlier today, I've been doing some reading of some things. I feel like this vlog has kind of started to put me in a reading slump, which I kind of hate. I read about 100 pages of The Game Changer. I was reading this one for the first, like, hour to like hour and a half of reading that I was doing today. And this is one that I was looking forward to because I have read 2 other romance books from this author before. And this is one that I was excited about because it's a hockey player and a baker. And I was like, oh my god, that sounds so cute. And I heard it also involved some fake dating. But what I didn't realize about this book is that it was going to be like childhood friends to lovers kind of thing, which I don't love childhood friends to lovers. I actually really don't like it. I think it's just so cringy because like right at the beginning of this book, in his head, he's calling her like kid and he's referring to her as a kid, and they keep having to tell him like don't call her kid and like don't refer to her as that because she's all grown up now. But like because they knew each other when they were younger, he's like, in my head she's still a kid, and I'm like, ew. That is so gross. Like, why are you sexualizing her if you still see her as a kid? All of her, like, commentary in her head, I think is, like, really annoying and really repetitive because she keeps being like, oh my god, like, if only my younger self would know what I was doing now. It was just very annoying, and, like, there's a reason why I don't like childhood friends to lovers, and it's usually because of these things. So I read about 100 pages, and I was really bored and just wasn't really feeling this one, so I decided to DNF. And then I very briefly thought, well, maybe I'll pick up Sharks in the Time of Saviors because this is a book that I was hoping to get to at some point in this vlog. This is one that I honestly don't know too much about it. I've just heard that it's a literary fiction that's about siblings. I think it takes place in Hawaii, and that's all I really knew about this one, but I've been wanting to read this one for like forever. I think it's mostly because the cover is just so incredible and so cool, but unfortunately I only got about 30 pages into this one before I just decided I don't know if I'm in the mood for this right now or if the writing style is just not really for me. I just couldn't connect with it right away, so I decided to set it aside because I just wasn't invested. And so instead, I ended up reading the entirety of Smashed by Junji Ito. This is another short story collection from him. There's 13 short stories in here. And it sucks because, you know, I am such a big fan of Junji Ito and I've loved so many of his horror manga collections, especially his short stories. Like, I love his short story collections, but this one kind of was a bit of a flop for me, if I'm being honest. Like, this one was not that great. I'm thinking I want to give this one around like 2 to 2.5 stars, which is such a bummer to have to end the video on this note. 13 short stories in this collection, and I really enjoyed maybe like 2 of them. And some of them were just like not that great, and it sucks because some of them had really cool concepts and like they were really interesting, but then I thought like the ending just like really dropped the ball, or like it became very uninteresting the more that I kept reading about it. For me, the only short stories in this collection that I did really enjoy was actually the first one, this one called Bloodsucking Darkness. Oh my god, it had some really freaky shit with bats and it made me genuinely so scared. So that one was really good. And then I also did like the one that's called The Mystery of the Haunted House, and there's kind of like 2 different short stories that like one of them's kind of a spin-off of that story. I didn't care for the spin-off of the story as much, but that actual short story, The Mystery of the Haunted House, I thought that one was pretty fun, and the ending was like super creepy for that one. But otherwise, I feel like the rest in this collection just didn't really work for me, or I just found some of them to be so like cheesy or like cringy or just not as interesting as I was hoping for. So as far as like the short stories go from Junji Ito, I do think this is one of my least favorite from him so far, which is so unfortunate. I do think I've read most of his short story collections by now. I think my favorite by far is still Shiver. I don't know if anything is ever gonna beat Shiver. Alright, so that is a wrap on this reading vlog. I just wanted to show the final stack. I was able to complete 6 different things in this video. I read 2 different mangas and then 4 novels. And then I also DNF'd 5 different books. Oh my gosh. I was so unhinged this week. I was just DNFing things left and right, but look at how beautiful this stack looks all together. Oh my goodness. So yeah, quite a lot of reading happened throughout this week. So you'll have to let me know if you enjoy this reading challenge. If this is something that you would like to see me do again in the future, I would love to know. I will have linked down below the previous time that I did this week-long reading challenge because that was also a really fun time. And thank you so much for watching. If you've read any of the books that I read in this video, I would love to know your thoughts on them. You can let me know in the comments. And thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye!